just like a insect which is unable to get out of the whirlpools in a river, only going from one whirlpool to another, just goes back and forth, just like that, the jivas also do the same thing. We have to see the similarity. So we saw that the jiva essentially goes into its really life is in that manner a complete circle. A complete circle. You have a beginning. So asti jayate, vardhate, viparinamate, etc. So you have all of this deha, the sharira, the body goes through the beginning, rises up and has some good years and then starts to atrophy and then nashyati. Then it disappears, but the body disappears, but the jiva continues on. So in that manner, the life of an individual is like a whirlpool. And so this is something where it is not visible to us. We cannot say that, okay, I was in the previous life like this, and then this is what this is, and so on. That's not possible, neither is it advisable. Because as it is, we have a lot of problems with this life. If we have to deal with previous life's problems, my children and wife and husband from the previous life, where are they, what's happening to them, and so on and so forth, life will be impossible. But this is where the the word of the Vedas, word of Shastra, which is the word of Ishvara, has to be relied upon. So there they say that the Shrishti, the very creation, is in the form where the whole life is recreated every some changes with karmas and so on and so forth, but it remains the same. It remains the same. And really in that sense, the only thing that one gains from it is the opportunity to get out of this rut. Otherwise, all of the things that we do in our life are wasted. Wasted in the sense that, for example, we have no idea, we have no responsibility for people that we have left behind in the previous life. We have no knowledge, no responsibility. We're not aware of it. We're disconnected from it. But we are connected to the families and friends of this life with all of its issues, problems, and so on and so forth. And then we should see that very soon, sooner than you and I may realize, we are going to be disassociated with this set of families and friends. We're going to make another brand new set of friends, new mother, new father, new friends. This is going to continue. And so the only thing that we can think about, I mean, it's a wasted in the sense that all the money that you've earned is gone, all the friendships that you have made is all gone, all the relationships that you are doing is all gone. Nothing is kept. It's not as though anybody can help you in the next life. No, it's gone. So the only thing that you can keep with you is the internal wealth of an improved mind. That's it. That is your wealth that you get to keep. And so in the teaching of Vedanta, the life should be meant for improving your assets. The assets that are wasted, you should not think much about. Let it, you enjoy it for a while, but it's not going to help you long term. But the assets that will help you long term is your own thinking, your own mind. And when that happens, then it says, as verse number 31 says, Satkarma paripakate. So Satkarma means the good karma that have come from an improved mind. An improved mind. And the improvement is basically in the form of, ultimately the improvement is in the form of Vairagya. Vairagya. And it's interesting, the more I read about how a person is introduced to Vedanta and how I was introduced to Vedanta, so on, I can now see that even before I was studying Vedanta, I was really not that crazy about things like movies, parties. Something didn't do much for me. And so I had a natural Vairagya from my own. I have a lot of problems, that's a different thing. Health is a problem, and some raga desha is still there, and all those kinds of things I'm still. But the one thing I was very happy with, just looking back at my own life, that I did have some freedom from being occupied with so-called trivial things. And I remember this so well, that I used to feel, what's wrong with me? Everybody else is just laughing away, and after a party, they don't want to go home. And I don't even want to go to a party. I thought it's useless, just trivial talk. It didn't do anything for me. And so everybody used to say, you're just a, and I used to say that I just want to improve myself. I want to think. And everybody used to say, you're crazy, think what? Just enjoy life. I know that I'm very happy that I had that attitude. But I didn't have an introduction to knowledge. And I'm talking in some detail on this because in the 6th chapter of Panchadasi, which is just an absolute marvel, 298 verses. I don't know how we're going to cover that. I mean, every time I read some new book, I feel this is what I want to teach because I get so much out of it. Anyway, just to continue with this line of thinking, in the towards the latter part of this chapter, and I think I'm doing it the third time. This is my second revision of the 6th chapter. Here, Swami Vidyaranya says that basically, for people who are very serious about making progress in life, improving their minds and so on, need to have reliance on 3 things. And all 3 of us, a big discussion on this, several verses, I think about 12, 13 verses on this. And so the 3 things are Vairagya, Jnanam, and Uparama or Uparati. It's the same thing. So that happens in our sadhana chatushtayam. Remember, we said Viveka Vairagya, Shamadhi Shatka Sampattihi, and Mumukshutvam. This is from Tattva Bodha. And in the sadhana Shatka Sampatti is Shama, Dama, Uparama. So just a few words on what does it mean. So, Vairagya means that doing things which appear normal to people, there is no ruchi for it. There is no raga for it. And that happened to me very early on in my life because it didn't... music, this, that, or the other, it didn't seem anything for me. But I didn't have any jnanam until much later on. And then the third thing is, And by the way, these three things are all reinforcing. So this is what is called hetu-mat bhavaha. Hetu-mat bhavaha means that one is the reason, the other one becomes the effect, and then the effect sometimes reinforces the original one. So, for example, if you have some measure of vairagya, then jnanam improves it. Then it improves your vairagya, makes it even more thorough. And the more thorough vairagya now improves the jnanam. So it's a mutually reinforcing kind of a thing. So uparama. Uparama means that you are, even though you do not have vairagya, even if you have vairagya, it means that it doesn't bind you, it doesn't pull you, it doesn't control you. Even so, you have just from the sheer habit, you are engaged in doing things. Some of it is due to the requirements from the family, and that part is acceptable. That part is acceptable. But some of it is you're just used to doing it. You're busy, and that also needs to go. And the reason why it needs to go is because without that, the study of the self, you won't even have any time for it. So what it really means is, it's sort of like another way of looking at kamya karma. That for a sadhaka, what I'm talking about is the improvement of the mind over several lives. It doesn't happen overnight. It just takes several lives. The improvement of the mind finally results in vairagya, aruchi, not just headlong going into things that don't help you. You have to go into things that will help you long term, not only in this life but in the next life. Because we don't know whether we're going to become a Jivan Mukta in this life. Most probably not. We'll have to wait for some more time. Unless you are such a genius that we don't recognize you, chances are that you and I are both, we need a couple of more lives at least, minimum. But you can't even get there until you develop your mind with these three things, which is vairagya, jnanam, and uparati or uparama. So this is discussed in great detail in there. Anyway, so coming back to verse number 31, he says, Satkarma paripakat te. So te means that these jivaha, who are like insects that are held into a whirlpool, when their satkarma means the right kind of karma. It doesn't all mean good karma. It means good karma. Because sometimes bad karma also is very useful. Because you don't really start to think until you have some tragedy in your life. Tragedy in your life. Because then your mind says, what's going on? There must be a better way. Why are things so happening to me so much? So that also some mixed, but if there is too much tragedy, then it's not very helpful. Because then you will start to disbelieve God, you'll start to disbelieve your life, and you may commit suicide. So it's a very funny kind of a combination between good karmas and bad karmas. And anyway, so satkarma paripakat means that when the right set of karmas becomes fructified. So then like as the acharyas say, the fruit when it is ripe disassociates itself from the tree. automatically. Until then, it requires some nourishment and so on and so forth. But when it is ready to become independent, it automatically drops. And so when that ripening of the mind takes place, then what happens is that some help is given to you in the form of teaching. Just like a help is given to a kida, a insect, by taking it out of the whirlpool into the shade of a tree. So, prapya tira taruchayam. So not only outside, not in a hot area, but the person carefully puts it under the shade of a tree. So just like that, here also, the teaching reaches you in some form and takes you out. And the teaching has to be also done properly. And so the need for a teacher also is there, which is given in the next verse. So, Upadesham avapyam acharyat tattvadarshinaha panchakosha vivekena labhante nirvritim param. So similarly to that, similarly to somebody taking out the insect from the whirlpool, then having gotten the teaching from a person who knows the truth, Acharya Tattvadarshina, and we saw the definition of Acharya, I won't repeat it, all of that, but Tattvadarshinaha means one who is able to see the truth. This is Swami Maheshanji made a very beautiful point. So we are going to pause on what does a Tattva-darshanan means and why the need for a teacher is. Very beautiful, really. It's just a marvelous kind of a thing. And so he says, here's what happens. These are people who have really devoted their life to the study of this whole phenomena. How does one person become free? I don't find just some pedantic knowledge here. This is a first-hand experience from the way they communicate it. It's so beautiful. So what he says is, here's what happens. So, the introduction to the study of Vedanta is like drishtaphala, not adrishtaphala. Drishtaphala means now. The results are given now, not later. In terms of the karma and upasana, creates adrishtaphala. Like supposing you study, you go to a temple and you study, Rudram and other Vedangas and Veda mantras, and you do puja and so on and so forth, and you're very devoted, and you do pujas at home, nice devotee for doing this. What this does is, there is no drishtaphala, or there is some drishtaphala. Drishtaphala means immediate results. So the immediate result is that you feel good. Your mind is more peaceful. Instead of seeing a Bollywood movie and this, that, or the other, you're peaceful. You're together as a person. This is the drishtaphala. But beyond that, there is no other drishtaphala. But there is a lot of adrishtaphala. Adrishtaphala means that you have stored results that will fructify for you later. And when, we don't know, but most of the time it would be in the form of some punya. So some of it can be could be used up in this life also. So for instance, supposing, and this happens really all of us without our knowing. Sometimes, you come back from a big trip, airplane trip or, car trip and so on. and you come back and you say, oh, everything went well. You have no idea how close you might have gone to a very serious accident. You have no idea. No idea. Especially in airplanes and so on, just one small mistake, then it can just, and no, not only that, you're going on a road and this other person is just looking at their cell phone when he gets into your lane. But that did not happen. So some of the punya that you might have gotten from the study, that might have prevented you from having a serious, because we have no what there's so much going on behind the scenes. How it gets protected, you have no idea. Some of the punya, however, is saved for the next life. So your next life will be a lot better. You'll be born in a nice home where people are kind, and mother and father also are good-natured, family is good-natured, and there is study and so on. This is called delayed results. But the study of Vedanta is just the opposite. The study of Vedanta is Drishtaphala primarily, very little Adrishtaphala. How? So the study of Vedanta is like shining a light in a dark space. So when you shine a light in a dark space, you don't have a delayed reaction. It's not as though things will be visible to you next day. Not like that. When some words are used properly and you are also listening, it has an immediate effect on you. Okay, so it has Drishtaphala. So Shravanam and Mananam. Perhaps Shravanam may not have a complete effect because your mind was elsewhere or something. But but as soon as you think about it, you say, yes, this makes sense. Swami Dayanandji had this standing joke. He says, sometimes, he says, when I'm teaching something and I give a joke, everybody laughs. Everybody's laughing and it's wonderful. So one of the person says, what was so funny about it? He asked the neighbor, what did he say? I didn't quite get it. So the neighbor said, I don't know, you have to think about it and so on. So this person felt a little small. So he told Swamiji that, Swamiji, the other day I was taking a shower and I was thinking of your words and it suddenly dawned on me and my mouth was open and I swallowed a lot of water. And so it was a delayed reaction. So Swamiji said, I asked him, what was your understanding, by the way? So when he said, Swamiji said, I started laughing after that. So anyway, so this is a delayed reaction that can happen from Shravanam and Mananam. But together between Shravanam and Mananam, the Upadesha is immediate. So just listen to this. This is very interesting stuff. So is immediate. Okay? Now, if it is immediate, nothing is going to happen later. Why doesn't immediately release me from my... Why don't I just feel that, okay, you are the complete being. You are the unlimited being. Why doesn't it just hit me and then I just stop living because I'm done? Why doesn't it happen? The reason for this is what this discussion is all about. This is a very important discussion. And the discussion is that knowledge, there are two or three ways of looking at it. Knowledge can be adhrita jnanam and dridha jnanam. Adhrita jnanam means it is there but not very firm and clear in my mind. And dridha jnanam means clarity, firmness of the knowledge. This is one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is what is called Paroksha Jnanam and Aparoksha Jnanam. So Paroksha Jnanam means that it is Jnanam. From your logic, you cannot dislodge it from your mind. This is absolutely pakka. Like, for instance, you cannot have something without the source being already there. Nothing comes out of nothingness. This is pakka logic. I buy that. And there is only one Purusha. Because when you have multiple Purushas, they'll all be fighting with each other. And so the Purusha is only one. That also makes sense. Ishvara and are two different, they're not two different people. One is a copy of the other. That also makes sense. All of those things make sense. But yet it does not release me from becoming totally, from being bound. Why is that? So this is what is said, that the jnanam is paroksha jnanam, natu aparoksha jnanam. Okay? Alright, so here in the description, Swami Maheshananji has taken up, elsewhere he takes up aparoksha versus paroksha, but here he says dridha jnanam and adridha jnanam. Dridha means firm and clear, adridha means lack of firmness and clarity. Okay, so that being the case. And elsewhere I think he has given this very nice example. He said, suppose you see a person walking towards you from a long distance. And what you don't know, that this might be a close friend of yours, or even a brother or a sister. Yet you don't know. It has not yet come close enough where you have clinching evidence that this person is this person. You don't have that. So you have a general view of the person is, but you don't specifically identify it as this one. Okay? So therefore, what needs to happen is that person, in that example, it needs to come close enough for you to identify it fully. Or another different examples can be given. It's very possible that your eyes are not focused very well because you've had some eye problems, or your glasses are of the wrong type or something. Even though you see somebody, but you don't positively identify it. So this is a kind of like an adridha jnanam versus dridha jnanam. Adridha jnanam versus dridha jnanam. So now we summarize it by this is an important thing to see, what you can get from reading books. Actually, you don't get very little from reading books, but supposing you do read the right kind of books and so on, you can only get adridha jnanam or paroksha jnanam. The value of a live teacher is to convert adridha jnanam to dridha jnanam. That portion cannot be done by reading books. So you can have some kind of a basis of your understanding. That is true. But a direct understanding that don't you see through meditation and through teaching and so on and so forth, this is who you are. And it also comes from the conviction of the person. I'm not bluffing. If I see it, then I need to make you see it. I think I can do that. This kind of a conviction. So this is, and by the way, another thing to look at is this. This is in the Mundaka Upanishad also. What does it say? Pariksha lokan karmachitan ayat brahmanaha nasti akritaha kritena tad vijnana artham gurumevi abhigachet. Gurumev ev abhigachet shrotriyam brahmanishtam. So both are mentioned, Shrotriya and Brahmanishta. So here in commenting on this, Swami Maheshananji says that Shrotriyatram means Shastra Jnanam. Shastra Jnanam means arguments, a completeness, that this is a copy, this is the bimba, this is pratibimba, this is a main person, this is all of those kinds of things. So this is what is called Tatparya Nishchaya. So what is the Vedas trying to tell us? You have to study from various sources. And then you say, yes, this is consistent. This is called Shastra Jnanam. Unfortunately, Shastra Jnanam is not the same as Brahma Jnanam. It should be, and it's very near. And what really what converts Shastra Jnanam to Brahma Jnanam? Brahma Jnanam means an immediate understanding, this is who I am. What the Shastra says is true. This is exactly true for me. This is called Brahma Jnanam. This is called Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. And so they say that if you don't find a Brahmanishta, at least go to a Shrotriya. And hopefully that person gets some glimpses. I have enough glimpses, I can tell you this. They may come and go, but the validity is very much with me. So I don't just say, this book says this, and I think that chapter is over, let's go to the next one. I have some personal experience of this. Not as much as I need to, but I do have some. Here, Swami Maheshananji gives a very beautiful example, and then we are done with this subject matter. He said, I think that he was alive today, he would have used GPS as the example. He uses maps, I think. He uses maps. So now I think we can upgrade it to a GPS. And it's very true. So what happens is that in GPS, I'm sure this is our experience, my experience also, yours also. These Google Maps and Apple or all these other people and these car-based GPS programs do the best job they can. And really it's a very good job. I'm impressed by them. But you know what? It's not 100%. It's not 100%. So here's what happened. The Shrotriya, who is not a Brahmanishta, is like following a GPS. And the difference is that someone says to you that, okay, here's what you do. You go to the third light, and the GPS says, go to the third light, and then turn left on some road or something like this. And the person says, by the way, most of the time, by the time you turn left, you've already passed it. This has happened to me, and I'm just giving it up in general. This happened to me on Google Maps and so on and so forth. Here's what you do. There is a yellow-colored building. Just watch for that. As soon as you cross the light, third light, coming in here from Yosemite, as soon as you cross Yosemite on Milpitas Road, there is a building on the right-hand side which is yellow-colored. Turn right in the driveway of that building. So this kind of a personal attention, which gives you a guide towards what to do in your life, is invaluable. Even though, so here in this analogy, the books are like GPS. But a Brahmanishta talking, it says, by the way, be careful, because I don't know what's wrong with these Google people. They have not really fixed it. They do not tell you that there is a side door that you have to turn right away by the time you get there. Something like that. So Swamiji gives the same example. He says that a personal experience on how this whole thing relates For example, when I give the example of, I think that would be a good way for me to give you an example. Then when I give you the example of Vairagya and how it has played a role in my life, I am not talking about chapters. Not talking about the book says this and Vairagya, Viveka and so on and so forth. I'm telling you how my life has improved to a point where I don't need that many props as I used to. My dependency on props. Props meaning everyone being nice to me, even health. My health always has been a mess in my life. And I used to be bothered more by it. And now it's let it go. Here Swami Maheshananji gives a very beautiful analogy. He says, this thing called raga dvesha, likes and dislikes. So when you say, do not have likes and dislikes, what does it mean? That means, that we all have likes and dislikes. We cannot lead a life without life. Yes, these are the master's insights. Incredible. He says, here's what it means. This is the way it should be looked at. When you have a problem in your life, dvesha, so raga and dvesha, the opposites of each other. Raga can be looked at differently. Let's look at dvesha. Dvesha means intense dislike. He says this is how we lead our life. When you have a problem, you immediately have an attitude, when is this problem going to go away? God, why is it happening to me? When is it going to go away? This disease, it's so bothering me. When is it going to go? This is called dvesha. Dvesha means a reaction to something that is happening to you. This is the real meaning of dvesha. So what is the alternative? The alternative to the dvesha is things happen to you without your asking. This is the karma phala. You don't wait for things to happen. Sometimes we make a mistake and we stumble and you say, even that also is karma phala in the sense that you did not see. You should have been more careful. That means that, sometimes I find that people are going down the steps and they're reading something. Or and they stumble. Well, you should be careful. You cannot do this. Why do you have the tendency of reading a book or, seeing a cell phone where you're going down the steps? At my age, I have steps in my house. Now when the steps come, I drop everything. Because I've learnt it the hard way. One time I was early in the morning, I think I was telling you this. It was very cold and I had this shawl over me and so on and so forth. And my wife was still asleep. It was dark and I didn't wake her up, so I was down the stairs. I stumbled and I went down 3 or 4 steps. And luckily nothing broke. It was carpeted. And I felt so stupid that why did I do this? From that point on, I've resolved that when I go down the stairs, I am not going to do anything else. If I'm holding something, it should be very small. Main focus is steps. At my age, if you break a bone, forget it. It's not like a young person that you will get out of it in a month or so. This will take a long time. I've seen that in so many places. So even that is also karma phala. But otherwise, the antidote to dvesha, the conquering of the dvesha, is not continuous harping, when is this going to go away? And when you say the continuous harping, when is it going to go away, you are blaming Ishvara. Why did you do this to me? And Ishvara is smiling and saying, you did it to yourself. What I do? I didn't do anything. And so this dvesha is really so to complete the thoughts, Swami Maheswaranji says that things are going to happen to you. And what happens will get resolved by itself. Like, for example, catching a virus cold. So there is a Devi for virus, by the way. Has to be. I don't know if it's a Devata or a Devi. Why am I saying a Devi for virus? It could be Devata for virus. Any bad thing, just like these storms are named after women at one time. Now they've changed it to both men and women. So there is a Devata for virus. And that Devata is going to visit you once or twice a year. Pakka. There is a date. You're going to get a cold. And then if you are somebody like me, the cold turns into infection, asthma, loss of voice, and a long thing. Whatever. I'm now used to it. In some cases, it goes and quickly relieves. You're going to get it. And by 99% of that, you cannot do anything about it. It's going to come and it's going to go. So the lack of dvesha is the recognition that things visit you and they're going to leave. It's like a visitor, who comes in and says, can I stay here for a while? Because, I'm visiting from India and my daughter lives here and she doesn't have any space. And so I would like to come and visit you. So you say, okay, I have a special bed, a spare bedroom, you can come. You don't ask the person, when are you going to leave? You don't do that. Somewhere in the talk you find out that it's approximately a week. Fine. After 1 week, the person is going to, in the meantime, you share the food with them, take them around a little bit. But if you have a dvesha, then you will say, why? This is what happens to our children who are born here. It's so funny. In India, I remember at one time in Bombay when I was 18 or 19, I stayed with my auntie, who just passed away recently, just a couple of months back. That was my last of my mother's siblings. The last sibling. She passed away just recently. So anyway, when we lived with her, I believe there were 7 of us in a 2-bedroom place. And we used to just sleep on the ground. And I think there were maybe 2 bathrooms or 1 bathroom, I can't remember. And I stayed there for 3 months. And it was a little inconvenient, but I don't remember a special problem or anything. It was nice. It was all well done. Our children here have a bedroom to themselves. And you tell them, by the way, the 2 of you have to move together because there is an aunt who is moving in. They have a temper tantrum. This is my room. How can anybody come into? This is your own sibling. Supposing you have 2 siblings and you say, now you have to get into the same room. So, the raga dvesha, this is the thing that we should see. This is the expert advice of people. I really appreciate that. It is just above the normal. Because normally you say you avoid your likes and dislikes and so on, and you say, yes, it's not, first of all you feel it's not possible. And then you say, well, maybe some other time. Right now I cannot avoid it. This is how you avoid it. But really speaking, this is a great advice. And the same thing is true for raga also. When you have something good happen, you feel, I hope that it doesn't leave me. This is beautiful fortune. But it's going to leave you. And so dvesha means that you are so taken in, you are so concerned about the attack on your health, attack on your well-being, that is occupying your whole mind space. This is called dvesha. And the way to get rid of that is to see the beauty, how the karma phala comes to you and leaves. It's just coming. And so when a fever comes, because this is the beauty of the Vedantic student is that a fever or a cold is an outside thing. It is not you. It's not you. And when we do the Panchakosha Viveka, which will be next verse, then this will become even clearer. But really speaking, just like you have a thorn in your skin, which is not part of your skin, it is an outside thing. It will happen, it will be, you can take it out. Similarly, a fever or a cold is something which is not intrinsic to you. It visits you, touches you, and will go. And if you just make your mind much more focused, this is where Swami Paramarthananda's, this is a very beautiful, I think we should commit to memory. I wouldn't even mind, I think maybe we should do this as the slogan for Arsha Vidya Center. Just like in the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam he says, Nahi jnanena sadrisham iha pavitram iha vidyate. I almost feel maybe we should do this. Swami Paramarthananda said, please remember, what you have is not as important as what you are. Beautiful. Nothing is as beautiful, nothing is as important, nothing is as valuable as yourself. But the fact is that I have not bothered to inquire into it. So I am only hankering about things that I have or don't have. When will they stay with me? That's all I'm concerned with. I'm oblivious to who I am. My inquiry hasn't even started. Swami Tattvavedananda often says that. He says, he just so accurately he says these are just baby steps. You are just taking some study of Vedanta, some Upanishads and so on. This is nothing. This is just don't think that I have accomplished, this is what happens. That sometimes I brag. Oh, we have done Mundaka Upanishad, we have done Taittiriya Upanishad, we have done this Upanishad, we have done that, the Dakshinamurti Stotram, Rudram, and you feel good. Everybody says, wow, you've done a lot. We have done nothing until you see how this translates into an inquiry about who you are. We are so concerned with what we have that we are oblivious to what we are. These are baby steps. We have a long ways to go. And if you do that, then you're less concerned about raga-dvesha, health problems. It just comes and goes. Doesn't matter. It's kind of like a scientist who is on to some big discovery of some basic facts. Supposing you are looking at some new study of DNA and you are a researcher at Stanford or something, and you come home and the food is not well prepared, it's leftovers or something. It doesn't matter to that person because you're so involved in something higher. Whereas if you are having a bad time at the office, everybody thinks, hey, shape up, otherwise we're going to fire you. And then you come home and your wife has not prepared some good food or something, you have a big fight. Because you need the food to fill the gap in your life. So similarly here, we are so concerned about things outside of me, that no bad things should happen to me. This is because I have not yet inquired into the beauty of myself. And so the whole reason for the Vairagya is that I should really do this antardrishti and inquire into it. And then you find that other problems just fade away in comparison. They'll still be there. So here, it's very possible that, so for example, when you have a cold or some fever or something, it's not as though the suffering of the jnanis is any less. They also suffer. But the component of emotional suffering is not there. Why does it happen to me? What is my future going to be like? I am always getting cold, and I'm always having these problems, and I'm having to do this, that, or the other. That is what emotional support is. And that is actually gone out of the window. You just suffer through it, physical pain, and just go on with it. Anyway, so we're talking about, so in summary, the value of a teacher who speaks from some experience. Some experience may not be complete. And it's a very rare thing to go to someone who has complete knowledge about this, and also has the Shastra Jnanam, and has the time to teach you. We cannot find such people. So you're only stuck with people like me, who have had, I think, a fair exposure to Shastra Jnanam, and have had enough glimpses about the Brahman as being myself, that they're speaking from experience. Even though they are also in traveling and going on with a complete cessation of all the problems, but enough that they have some personal experience that they're talking from. So that is what is called Brahmanishta and Shrotriyatam. And the same thing is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Tad vidhi prashnena paripatena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha. So in this jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha, jnaninaha means Shastra Jnaninaha, and tattvadarshinaha means Brahma Jnaninaha. Same thing, Shrotriya Brahmanishta. So these two things should be clear to us. And the reason for that is that your Adhrita Jnanam is only completed by a live person into Dhrida Jnanam. Just like, the GPS can only go so far, but if someone has been there and he says, by the way, look for the yellow building. So in GPS, they won't say that. GPS won't say that. They'll say, what does it say? It says
100 feet turn right.
Not even 100 feet. Or they'll say bear to the right. This happens to my wife and I. I'm the one who's really doing it, and she also blames me. She says, aren't you following GPS very well? So I don't know whether I was supposed to take this turn or the next one, because they are inconsistent. They'll say bear to the right. That means that I'm just now, there's a long ways to go. It is really the next one. So GPS doesn't say the yellow building. They should say, by the way, look for the yellow building and then turn right. They won't say that, But this is the thing. Shastra says all this in a very objective manner. But a very beautiful example that Swami Maheshananji gave. This, I'm happy that I saw this. This is very interesting. So Swami Maheshananji says, we have talked about the just a second, hold on, let me look at the exact words. This is a very interesting example. Yeah. So we have talked about the role of pratibandha. Pratibandha. Pratibandha means an obstruction. This is an interesting thing to see. So suppose you cannot see something very well. And you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, the good news is that your eyes are very healthy. The bad news is that you have cataract. And I think we can fix it. So the cataract is a pratibandha. It's an obstruction that does not allow you to see things very clearly. And what you need to do is to take care of the pratibandha and things will be okay. But if you have a basic defect on your eyes, then it's very possible. Like my younger brother is having a huge problem with his eyes, one of his eyes. And they are still struggling to see what the problem is. They have not been able to figure out. And it's very possible that over time he may lose the sight of one of his eyes. So that's a different case altogether. It's not a pratibandha. This is Swarupa itself has a problem. Okay? So now what happens is, here the example is given. So it says that supposing you want to cook dal, and normally depending upon the type of dal there is, like for example moong dal, the yellow moong dal is very easy to cook. And this black dal, which is all covered with some stuff, it takes a little longer time. But each one of them at sea level has a predictable time that it would take for it to cook. So Swamiji says that suppose you go to Kedarnath, which is, I don't know what the altitude is, but I think it's over 10,000 feet.
12,000.
12,000? 12,000 feet. Okay. So you go to 12,000 feet. And supposing you put even the moong dal, and you say, okay, after 20 minutes it should be all ready. It's not going to cook. So you say, what's wrong? The fire is hot, and I have enough water in there, and I've been waiting for 45 minutes, and it is still so hard. What's wrong? It is the pressure, the reduced pressure at 12,000 feet. So this is called a pratibandha. What you don't realize is that you need have higher pressure to cook, sea level pressure. So if you cook it in a pressure cooker, it cooks nicely. It cooks nicely. So the pratibandha is there's different kinds of pratibandha. One is that your study is not as committed as it should be. So you have some knowledge, but it hasn't fructified to give you good results. And so this is where they say that a lot of discussion with the teacher is very necessary. The teacher should sit down with you and review how much study you are doing. What are you studying? Some of it I can tell from your this, but I'm not sure about your. This is one of the things I'm looking forward to, is that we have a little bit more time for me to get to know you and advise you on some things. And so this is one pratibandha, is that your study is not as effective or committed as it should be. This is one pratibandha. Even though you are listening to the same thing, and so this is like, it should cook, but there's some obstruction. Another obstruction, which is not this is just on the side, so this is not the main topic, is that you are preoccupied with something or someone where this is what is called asakti. So asakti means you're very emotionally committed to something which seems even more important to you than the study of Vedanta. And often happens with the love for a child or some dependency or something or the other. Here Swami Maheshananji gives this example about Paramahamsa in Bengal, in Ramakrishna. So this is the very famous example. I think I've talked about that before also. That Ramakrishna was a great bhakta of Kali, and in fact Kali used to appear in form for him, and he used to talk to her, and he had just his whole life was just based on what Kali does and so on and so forth. This is what's called asakti. So as his fortune would happen, there was a Mahatma called Totapuri. He happened to be from Punjab. And he says this is an amazing thing. He was not traveling all that much, but he happened to go to Bengal for some reason. No idea. And he passed by that, and everybody said, you have to visit Ramakrishna, and what a great soul he is. He sees Kali, and so on and so forth. So he went to visit with him, and saw that this is actually a very evolved soul. And he could also tell that he is not a free person. He's a very happy person, very committed person to Kali, but really not an independent person, as it should be, not a Jivan Mukta. So he spent some time with him and told him, I would like to teach you Vedanta, Brahma Vidya. So Paramahamsa agreed, and but he could tell from the student that he was very distracted because his drishti was towards Kali all the time. Finally, he confronted him. He says, you know what? You have to get rid of your love for Kali. So Ramakrishna said, I can't do that. My whole life has been devoted to Kali. She's my mother. She's the goddess, and she's everything to me. So he must have reasoned, I'm just making it up a little bit, he must have reasoned with him that don't you see you are dependent on her? You're not completely free. So he must have made him see that. Because finally Ramakrishna agreed that yes, this is not total freedom, even though it is a very evolved non-freedom, but it's not complete freedom. So he says, listen, I want you to completely give up the thought until I prove it to you with Nirvikalpa Samadhi that you are by yourself, you don't need anything. But Ramakrishna was such an evolved person that he agreed to do it, and he did it. He did it. And so the example here given is that this was an extreme example, but a real one, that another obstruction that we have is that we have a sort of a love for something where it does not allow me to independently study for myself. And we have to do that. So those are the reasons for doing all of that. Okay. I think I'm pretty much covered everything that Swamiji. So then, now we go on to the next topic. The next topic is also given in the second line of verse number 32. Upadeshyam avapya evam acharyat tattvadarshina. So similarly, having gotten the teaching from a person who knows the truth, they attain freedom by pursuing the Panchakosha Viveka. So, Panchakosha Viveka is the form of the Upadesha. This is the form of the teaching. And you have to completely understand this. And if you do, your life's goal is fulfilled. This is how important it is. It is mentioned here that having received this teaching, who now with the help of Panchakosha Viveka gives you freedom from all problems of your life. All problems. Everything. Not partial problem. Everything. Death even. Disease. Everything. This is what a Panchakosha Viveka does. And so here, this is now taken up in verse number 33. So, the Panchakosha Viveka in brief means an understanding. I am not what I have. I am independent of what I have. I have a body, Annamaya Kosha, I have Pranamaya Kosha, and Pranamaya Kosha is the Pancha Pranas and Karmendriyas, the 5 organs of action. I have Jnanendriya, which is Manaha, my understanding of thinking, along with the 5 organs of knowledge, Manaha and Jnanendriya. I am not Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is Buddhi and Ahankara rolled into one. And this is the one which I have to finally get rid of, as we will be discussing. We have been discussing to some extent, but we will discuss it more. So, Ahankara means Aham Buddhi, the me, the conclusion, this is me. The knowledge, this is me, is also falls under what you have, not what you are. This also has to be given up. And Anandamaya Kosha, which is the experience of happiness, including your deep sleep, experience of deep sleep. This also is what you have, not what you are. So the Panchakosha Viveka means the Acharya's Upadesha, that don't you see you are different from what you have. All these koshas, kosha, the technical word kosha means a covering. Means a covering. So you are different from what covers you. Swamiji here gives an example that suppose you're wearing an undershirt and on top of that you're wearing a shirt, and on top of that you're wearing a sweater, and on top of that you're wearing a jacket, and on top of that you may be wearing a shawl around it. So these are your coverings. This is what you have. This is not what you are. And oftentimes you cover yourself so much that you cannot even be visible. Swamiji gives us example of this motorcyclist. He says that the motorcyclist oftentimes will wear all these clothes that we talked about earlier, and on top of that they have this leather jacket, thick leather jacket. And in front of their face they have this helmet with the glass which is brought down black in color. So their head is also not visible. Their face is also not visible. Their whole body is not visible. And it may be your own son, but you cannot recognize him. So similarly, the Panchakoshas are exactly like that. In fact, elsewhere something it says that the clothes you wear are the sixth kosha. And the only difference is that the clothes that you wear can be washed very frequently without any damage to you. But the other portions, things you wash with, you have a sub feeling like you wash your body, and then you can tell this is I'm washing it. But really speaking, all these are nothing but koshas. They are just covering. And the covering is not as though they are really covering you, but they appear to cover you. In the case of the clothing and so on and so forth, they do really cover you. But in the case of the body-mind complex, the Annamaya kosha, etc., it is only because of lack of discrimination that they cover you. Like, for example, in the case of, let's say there's a pollution in the air. The pollution in the air does not cover the space. It is due to a misinformation. You are mixing up air and space. They are covering up the space only because of your lack of discrimination. So that's how the Panchakosha Viveka is done. So the Upadesha, which completely frees you from any limitation, is in the form of Panchakosha Viveka. Most important part of the teaching. And so that we will take up in more detail next time. But you can see how as you make a mistake that what you have is what you are. What you have is what you are. You cannot get out of this. The only way to get out of that is to make a distinction that I am different from what I have. And that is given by an Acharya Upadesha, and that through that Panchakosha Vivekena Labhante Nirvritim Param. That is the only way to get out of the whirlpool and stop this nonsense of going from one life to the other. And this can be done through a teaching which is Drishtaphala. And if it is not Drishtaphala, it is only because it is Adrita Jnanam. The same Adrita Jnanam will become Drida Jnanam if you continue to pursue it. Just like if a person is walking towards you and it comes near enough and you say, oh, I thought it was just any person. This is my friend. So this is the sequence that we have to see. And this is the introduction in the first chapter of the Panchadasi. This is the fundamentals of teaching. As I mentioned in the very beginning of the class, I found that this is a great chapter that goes through very systematically. So anyway, with that, I will end the class and hopefully we'll have some time for questions. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om. Yes, Ramanaji?
So if I follow the first part of the talk, where it is said that any affliction I have is part of karma, it will come and go, it is God given. Then what is the need for pancha kosha viveka?
So that is the first part of the Panchakosha Viveka. So it will go, but then if it will go, what will remain? Is that clear to us? See, if there is a disease which is being said is that it's an external entity which gets on top of you, when it goes, then what is left? Question is, what is left? And if the answer to that is that I am left with a healthy body, then the healthy body is also going to go at one time. So the analysis is just the beginning. It's not a complete analysis. Yeah. Other questions on this? Wow. My teaching is so clear, there are no questions. Now we have the time. We don't have to close the mandir at 9 o'clock. So what do you think about this place? How does it